I am William Mukana.
I'm Benjamin Reski.
And we are with Robert Madden. So we are going to start off easy with our first question. Could you tell us about your childhood?
Yes, I was born in 1927 at St. Mary's Hospital. I grew up in Shorewood. I went to kindergarten at Atwater School and grade school at St. Robert's School. And then after that I was at Marquette High and Marquette University for college and medical school.
And you said that your father worked in insurance and your mother briefly as a public school teacher.
Yes.
Could you tell us about how growing up during the Great Depression was?
It was tough, but nobody had any money, and we all got a small allowance, which never lasted till the end of the week. And but we all got by. Nobody starved, and so we were fortunate there.
And you said you had siblings. How was that?
I had a younger brother who died in 1989 in Cleveland. He dropped dead after playing tennis. And I have a sister who lives in here. She's 6 years younger than I am. Okay. And I'm just 99.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about your family's experience with polio.
Yes.
So I wanted to know, how old were you when polio entered your family?
Well, that happened in 1944, and I think I was 16 or 17 then. And then I was, my sister who lives down the hall had it, and my brother, who's deceased, had it, and so we were hospitalized at Southview in Contagious Disease Hospital for about 3 weeks, and then we were in Children's Hospital for about 3 weeks. We were the oldest kids that ever went to Children's Hospital.
So what were the first symptoms that you noticed within your family?
Headache, stiff neck, and we knew from other people that we knew's experience had similar symptoms, and then we had a fever, and just all your muscles were aching and painful and seemed to be weak. So, and my brother and sister both had polio before I did, and they were in the hospital, so we were pretty much aware of how it was going.
And do you remember anything specific about the treatments that your siblings went through, including you?
Well, the treatments were all the same. There was not a sister or a nun, but she called her Sister Kenny, and she had treatments. They put hot packs on your muscles in the arms and legs and back and things like that. They didn't do any good. It was just something to do, and everybody was pretty sick. My sister had trouble breathing and needed to be on a respirator, or as he would call it, an iron lung. And my brother got well, and I eventually got well too. But I couldn't run fast, and I had weak muscles and all that. So that's kind of the long and the short of it.
How would you describe the treatment of the doctors and the nurses?
Oh, they were all fine. The doctor at Southview Isolation Hospital was a national figure in medicine. He was an infectious disease specialist, and he oversaw the treatment of just about everybody that was in the hospital. It was mostly adolescents and smaller children, and they came. A lot of the epidemics centered in Shorewood and on the west side over near Washington High School, and West Allis and Wauwatosa.
So, did your family members have lasting effects from polio?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Were there lasting effects within your family from polio?
My sister still has trouble swallowing. That's going to be with her for the rest of her life. She's about 92 years old now. So she has to eat special foods, and she eats kind of herself because it takes her about an hour to eat supper.
So, with your experience in polio, and especially your sister having to be on an iron lung, what did you experience any fears with this?
I couldn't hear it.
Sorry. With polio, and especially your sister having to be in an iron lung, what fears did you experience during your time with polio?
I still didn't get your question.
Oh.
Miss, you want me to explain about iron lungs or something?
With the treatment of your sister and how severe it was, since it came last to you, how did you experience any fear around it?
Well, of course, we were all afraid that the disease was going to progress, and a lot of the kids that we knew were dying, and we were fortunate we survived and got well and had physical therapy, and we all went to the Ginsland School. I was going to be a junior at Marquette then, and so I went there for the rest of the second semester, and then I went back to Marquette for the senior year. And my brother was still in grade school.
And how did the broader community react to this?
The what community?
How did the broader community react to this?
I don't know what that community is.
Would you say that the people around you supported your family through this?
Oh yeah, people, they came over and brought food and sent letters and cards, and the food at the isolation hospital was awful, and so we had a problem with getting fruit. They finally brought us prunes, so no one would eat them, and the kids threw them at each other, and they stuck on the wall, and then the janitors couldn't get them off. So I went down there 6 years later, and the prune stains were still on the wall.
Oh. We're going to briefly move from your family's experience with polio. What do you remember about being a teenager during World War II?
Well, we were on, listened to the news broadcasts every night, and we followed the progress of the U.S. armies in the Atlantic and the European theater, and also in the Pacific theater. And every night we'd listen and see who was doing what and how it was coming. And, eventually they would show some signs of progress in the war and getting out of it. Eventually they made it out after a lot of fighting.
Would you say that everyone was kind of keeping an ear open for some of the events that were occurring?
We kept the eyes and ears open about the war in every way we could. We had no TV, we had radio and newspapers, and we had all of the various news broadcasts on the radio. So we listened to them religiously.
How did you end up joining the Navy, and what led you towards your medical service?
I joined the Navy in 1945. That was my senior year in high school. And before that, in high school, I was a Sea Scout. And we had a ship, like a sailboat, and we used to sail on Lake Michigan, and we did a lot of stuff that you would do if you were a recruit in the Navy. And then I didn't want to be in the Army, so I decided that I would join the Navy. So I did that, and in 1945, after I got right about this time of the year, I was taken to Great Lakes, and we started training then for work in the Navy.
Would you say a lot of the senior class was joining military in the Navy?
Just about everybody did.
Okay.
Probably. There was a few guys who might have not have passed their physicals, but otherwise just about everybody went into one branch or the other of the service.
Did you at any time felt pressured to join the military or join the Navy?
Well, you were pressured because if you didn't report for duty, you got big trouble. So there was, you would be drafted into the Army, but a lot of the guys preferred another branch. So I wanted to be in the Navy because I was interested in naval stuff, and my Sea Scout experience with sailing and navigating and things like that.
And what was your training like at Great Lakes Boot Camp?
12 weeks of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and marching all day long, and we had to shoot anti-aircraft guns. We had a guy who flew a plane with a sock behind it, and we shot anti-aircraft shells or bullets at that, and the guy couldn't land the plane until we shot the thing off. So finally they just had to cut it off, and the guy landed at 5 o'clock. So boot camp was just what you expected. It was a lot of running and exercising and marching up and down the fields. We had to crawl through pipes and all that stuff. We learned to shoot rifles and pistols, and we learned to care for them, cleaning them regularly and how to use them safely and all that. There was a lot of that type of thing in the boot camp. And of course you were in a really strict supervision. So I had an experience in Washington, D.C. I was looking at the White House through the bushes. This is after the war, about 1950, and I heard a voice talking, and I looked at this, and it was my company commander in boot camp. He was a tough guy, and he threatened to crash anybody who disobeyed him. So I said hi, and of course he didn't remember me. He had many recruit classes. So, but he was a tough guy and very hard to deal with.
What was the best skill that you learned from him?
I guess we just learned to do everything that they were teaching us, the other personnel and the company commander, and we tried to learn, use the weapons that we had, the guns and that was part of it. And of course, a lot of physical experience and physical exercise, and we did a lot of fighting in terms of hand-to-hand combat and all that. But nobody got hurt. We let up on them. But
was there a certain drill that you excelled at?
no, I don't think so. I didn't excel at any drill.
Then what led you to working in the dispensary?
To working in a dispensary?
Yes.
Well, after boot camp, which was 12 weeks long, they gave us our, we chose what we wanted. There was a whole bunch of disciplines you could go into, like radio and signaling and all that. And I selected signalman and something else, and also I selected a hospital corpsman. Then I got interested in medicine, and we were sent by train from Great Lakes to Farragut, Idaho, which is in the top part of Idaho, and it's near Spokane, Washington. So I went to school there for 12 weeks, and we learned about drugs and taking care of wounds, and we had all the soldiers and sailors back from the South Pacific there in the hospital being treated and getting physical therapy and all that. And I also played football there, and but the coach decided I was too small, and he said, "These guys will kill you." So that lasted about 10, 12 weeks. Then we went to another hospital in Medford, Oregon, which had been an Army hospital, and the Army had decided they didn't need it anymore, so we staffed the hospital there. The doctors were there and the nurses, and then I was a hospital corpsman, so we did what the doctors told us to do, and the nurses. As you probably know, the doctors were officers, and the nurses were officers. The nurses were mostly like lieutenants, and the doctors were lieutenants or majors, something like that. And so we did what they told us, and they taught us how to do a lot of the procedures and things.
What was your routine going from boot camp to working, then moving to Idaho?
Yes, the routine?
Yes.
You mean the transportation?
What was your daily routine like? Switching from your time at boot camp, which was rigorous, to your schooling in Idaho?
Oh, the schooling was done by the doctors and nurses. We had a series of lectures and demonstrations. And Farragut, Idaho, like Great Lakes, was also with a boot camp for people that went in from the West Coast in that area. So we worked there. I guess I played on the football team there, but it was not remarkable. And so we enjoyed that, and it was an interesting place out there. It was in the mountains, and actually in a wilderness. So we had more of that stuff from boot camp, and then we had a lot of work in the emergency room in the hospitals, and then I was trained to become a physical therapist. And so I was helping to rehabilitate the soldiers and sailors who had been injured and needed rehabilitation.
Was there any experience during your time working in the hospital that stuck with you?
That what?
That stuck with you?
Yes, when the nurses' dormitory caught fire, and we all had to go and rescue them.
Oh.
Do they know what, like, the source of the fire was?
No, I had no idea. It was probably people were smoking, so.
Was everyone okay?
Yeah, nobody was injured. We got the nurses out all right, and they were grateful. And the firemen put the fire out, and that was it. But the rest of the time, it was pretty much do the same thing over and over again every day.
Wow.
Were most of the soldiers that you guys helped at the hospital from, like, nearby, like, events, as opposed to, like, you get what I mean, though, right?
No.
Like, were they from...
Talk to him.
Yeah. Were all the soldiers that you guys were helping at the hospital from, like, occasions within the States, or were they, like, being, like, flown in from, like, other parts of the world?
No, most of our patients had been injured in the war, either shot or injured in some way, and so we spend most of our time working with them and trying to get them taken care of. The rest of our personnel that were not in the fighting we were not disabled or anything.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier being a physical therapist at the hospital. How was it like experiencing getting physical therapy from polio, and then also later in your life giving physical therapy for others?
Kind of unique. We had, after having polio, we had some, what I call elderly physical therapist women that were probably around 50. So anyway, they were all very nice, and we learned a lot about physical therapy from them, and they treated us very well, and I got to the point where I could run again, and my legs were sort of paralyzed, and the arms too. Before all that, I used to work for Coca-Cola, and I delivered Coca-Cola to all around Milwaukee. And of course, those cases of Coke with the 6-ounce bottle, they all were about 28 pounds, so we had to carry them in. But I wasn't able to do that for a while, so I got some other work at Coca-Cola till my muscles returned to reasonable strength.
What other work did you do for Coca-Cola?
That's all I did. I just worked on the truck, and I either drove the truck around and had a helper, or else there was an older guy who drove the truck, and I was the helper then. So, and I remember we visited almost all the taverns in Milwaukee, and I still go to one of them, the Valley Inn.
You had a lot of one-to-one contact with soldiers who were hurt. What was the emotions that they were experiencing as you were taking care of them?
Most of them were, for the main emotion they had was that they were out of the fighting, because there was all hand-to-hand fighting on islands. Like, I had this book called the Flags of Our Fathers, and then that was the story of a battle of Iwo Jima, which a bloody battle went on for weeks and weeks, and the soldiers, finally were able to get the island, but they were taking islands from the Japanese, heading toward Japan, and then there was going to be one final assault, but fortunately it didn't get to that. But that was the situation there. I don't know if I answered your question.
Oh, you answered it perfectly. Yes. Were there any particular people, officers, fellow medics, or patients that stuck with you?
Oh yeah, there was a lot of them. Of course, I never see them anymore. Some of them were very close friends of mine. Some of them had been injured. And we used to send Christmas cards, and there was a few guys around town here that I know from service, but most of them, almost everybody I ever knew was dead, so I can't do much with them.
And this is a fun question. As a medic, achievements looked a little differently than those in combat, with a final rating of second class pharmacist mage. What was it like dancing with Dorothy Day?
Doris Day,
Yes.
do you all know her?
Yeah, we learned about her in some of our theology classes.
She was a singer for Les Brown's band, and he had a popular swing band, and those swing bands used to come around and they'd sit on a truck or something and play a concert. So this, I had a guy I knew from Shorewood in San Diego, and Les Brown was coming to San Diego to play in some dance hall. And anyway, we had a young woman from Shorewood High School. Her name was Pat Flaherty, and she had just been hired by Les Brown. So she was coming out there, and one of the guys in our company knew her from school. And so we met her, and we just sat down at a table, and Doris Day was there, so she says, why don't you go over and dance with Doris Day, because I'm going to take her place. She's leaving Les Brown now. This is her last night with Les Brown. And then she went to Hollywood and became a big star, and then this other young woman became Les Brown's singer.
Wow. That's really exciting. Would you say that a lot of people enjoyed swing music?
Oh yeah, we all like music. I played the piano when the last night of boot camp, everybody had to do something. I played the piano. I played a song called I'll Be Loving You Always. Everybody was, oh yeah. Sure.
Were you really good at playing the piano?
No.
Oh.
I thought I was good, but I could play all the songs that were popular in that day. I can't play the music of today, that rock and that. I have no idea how to play that. But I play all the old popular songs, and then there was something called the Great American Songbook, and it has songs going back to maybe around 1900s, songs that our mothers and fathers sang and played. So I could do that, but no way can I play rock. And it sounds dumb too if I try to do it.
Do you still like to play piano today?
Oh, sure. I play. I try to entertain some of the women that live here. Some of them are as old as I am. And I said, come on up to my house here and I'll play a couple tunes for you. Okay.
Oh my Lord. When you left the Navy in 1946, what was the transition back to civilization, being like a civilian like?
It was wonderful. Just to be out of the Navy. You're always under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of opportunities to be punished or put in a brig or be penalized for something, and you know, if you didn't get a haircut when they thought it was necessary, they'd take away a liberty or something like that. So we got along all right, and never really had much trouble. And a lot of time we enjoyed the Navy. We had made a lot of good friends there, and of course we don't see them anymore, but it was good, and getting out was nice. I had a couple of friends that came back here, and we got on a train in Los Angeles, and there was no seats. So I said, God, we have to go 3,000 miles, and we don't even have a chair, much less a bed. And so anyway, I knew about trains and railroads because I'd been traveling a lot. And so we went up to the front of the train, and it was a transcontinental train. It was going from LA to Chicago. And so the train crew had a couple of cars where they slept and lived. And so we said, what do you think? You guys got any extra bunks? So three of us got a bunk, and we slept for a couple of nights on the train. And so that was okay. It's better than sleeping on the floor. But we were all so happy to be out of the Navy and back in civilian life again that nothing else would matter.
Did you find yourself keeping any of the practices they instilled in you?
That we learned?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I guess I do. Everything I do in the practice of medicine, probably, you know, most of my training was in medical school and during residencies at the VA hospital and other hospitals. So all that stuff kind of blended into a whole procedure for treating whatever you happen to run into.
And what was the most influential part of your medical training that influenced your experience in med school?
Well, the medical training was after medical school was where you were trained.
I mean, your time in the Navy.
Oh, well, we had experience. We had to give shots. The boots there, we got typhoid fever and typhus, cholera, and a bunch of tropical diseases that you had to give the shots. So we would line up, and everybody would get in a big line. A company had 170 guys in it, and we give the shots, and then they all had sore arms. They're all walking around like this, trying to exercise their arm. But, get over it in a couple days. So, and that saved a lot of lives because those islands in the Pacific, they had plenty of parasites in them that you could, and also with the armies in Europe, with shells and that, tetanus would have been, about tetanus?
Yes.
Lockjaw, okay, so you can't have that because that could be fatal too.
Would you say that your time in the Navy gave you a leg up at all at Marquette University?
No, I think I had some, probably superficial training, but of course the training at Marquette was much more exhaustive.
Mm-hmm. And what was your most meaningful experience in med school?
Well, I don't know. I'll think about that for a few minutes. Try another question. I had meaningful experiences all over the place, but I don't know what was exactly was meaningful.
How long would you say you studied in med school?
How long did I study?
Yes.
You mean like doing homework?
Yes.
Well, there just was no limit to it. You just did it. And if it was 1 o'clock in the morning, that's it. You did it anyway. And because they had quizzes going all the time. I had a nice girlfriend when I was in medical school, and I said, "It's Friday night, I gotta go home, we're having a test in neuroanatomy tomorrow, and I gotta start studying." And she was pretty mad at me. So that was my most meaningful experience.
Do you think the diligence you learned in your time during the Navy was something that affected your work ethic in med school?
Well, everything in a program like medicine or any discipline that you go into, the stuff that you learn, sometimes it's either impractical or worthless, and sometimes it's very meaningful. And a lot of the things I learned in the Navy about medicine, I relearned them again in medical school, and during residency programs, I was a resident in medicine at the VA hospital for 3 years, and I was an intern at St. Joe's Hospital for a year. So that's 4 extra years of training, and then 4 years of medical school. So you're supposed to know something when you get out.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to transition into talking about some of the broader events of the 1950s. How did you experience the early Cold War, news of the Soviet Union, nuclear weapons, and the arms race?
Well, we looked at them with horror because nobody wanted another war right off the bat, and Russia was arming and trying to produce an army, and the Germans had no use for another war, and nor did the Japanese, and we were actually friendly with them then. It's funny how you can be killing each other, and then right away the war is over and everybody's buddy. And this other thing, I don't know, how did you phrase that, what you asked me? I think I got sidetracked there.
Yeah, there were a few things. One thing that I wanted to ask about was the arms race. You were looking at everything in horror. How did you feel about the competition between the U.S. and the Soviets in space exploration?
Well, we were certainly interested in, after the war, they had this big space program, and of course they went to the moon and had various trips into space, and we thought it was exciting and interesting, and we took physics in pre-med, so we knew quite a bit about laws of motion and things like that. So we were very interested in all that space program and rocket ships and flying, way above where there's any oxygen. So we were all just interested in that, and we in school we took a lot of science. We had 4 years of chemistry. We had a year of it was a chemistry of drugs and things like that, And physics, we had a lot of that involved in medicine too. So a lot of those things came in handy. I taught chemistry at North Division High School one summer just because I couldn't get a job somewhere. And that was an experience. So I taught them inorganic chemistry.
What was that experience like, going from student to teacher?
Not too good. We were kind of rowdy students at Marquette, and these guys were really rowdy. But we did okay. We had a good time with them. I don't know how much chemistry they learned, but we tried hard to get their experiments done properly.
And then moving on, do you remember where you were for the first, when you first heard about the atomic bomb testing or the development of the hydrogen bomb?
Not the hydrogen bomb, but we first heard about the atomic bomb when we were still at Great Lakes in the summer of 1945. And we didn't know what they were talking about. In 1943, I worked at Alice Chalmers, which is a huge factory in West Dallas, and they made war materials there. And there was a place on Hawley Road, and nobody could go in there. And it was very restricted. And they were actually putting together the atomic bomb there. There was other places too. I don't know if they had uranium and that stuff there, but there was a place in Tennessee and another one in Washington State, and they were all working together. Of course, nobody knew this. They called the plant in West Dallas there, they called it a supercharger plant, because they had something called a supercharger they put in planes to make them go faster, or into tanks to give them more power and things like that. So that was something else. So we were down there getting ready to leave Great Lakes and go out to Idaho. And our parents were down there because we had graduated from boot camp. And so we read the paper, and we just heard that they had this giant bomb in Japan, and that was the beginning of the end of the war. They bombed Nagasaki a week later, and the Japanese said, no, that's it. So it was wonderful. Because we were expecting to go to the South Pacific Islands and continue the war, and we were all, of course, relieved that nobody would be shooting at us.
Were you aware of the devastation of the nuclear bomb?
Yes, we were. It was terrible. We had some professors at Marquette who understood the nuances of radioactivity, and everybody, even the guys that dropped the bombs, they were affected by radiation, and the people that lived in the town of Hiroshima were affected. If the bomb didn't injure them or kill them, they were all affected by radiation. And so the people that lived in that city subsequently had leukemia and cancer and diseases like that, which would have been caused by radiation. That was a lecture. I didn't mean to make it long.
No, and having that experience in the medical field, knowing what you know, did you feel, besides a sense of relief not having to go into combat yourself, did you feel any other emotions towards the people that were affected?
Well, we felt bad for them because some of them were pretty badly damaged and sick, but they were guys just like us. They were injured, and we were trying to do our best to bring them out of it. And the doctors were, working hard, and we were working with the doctors and learning from them. So it was a good experience for me, and hopefully for them.
And then, moving on, what do you remember about the Korean War, public opinions, media coverage, and how did the veterans react? How veterans reacted?
I don't really know. We didn't really know much about the Korean War. It was a ground war, and we didn't have much experience with that. But we just read about it every day in the papers and, hoped that it would be over with. I think it was a war that wasn't, they didn't have to have that. It didn't do any good, I don't think. But it just, I don't know what it was, but it just was kind of a dumb war, I think. I can't tell it any other way.
Those feelings are very valid. And did you have a question that you wanted to follow up on?
Yeah, I was just wondering what your experiences were surrounding like civil drills from like fear of atomic war and fallout. Like, what did you have to do in those situations?
I never had to do anything in that. I never was in an area where an atomic bomb had been dropped or exploded. And so there really wasn't much you could do. The main thing was to try to get people out of the area where there was so much radioactivity. That was really the big thing. The explosion was horrible, and I think a lot of people were killed and injured. But so many people that had been exposed to that atomic radiation, subsequently in their life, they developed diseases like leukemia and cancer and things like that.
Did you ever have to do any drills in like a what-if scenario?
No, I don't think so. There was nothing you could really do. I was never in an area where an atomic bomb had gone off or been dropped. So mostly what we learned about it is what we learned in medical school and our residencies about radiation and all that. And I know that the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they all had something wrong with them related to the atomic bomb. And I think there were a lot of deaths and premature deaths.
Have you noticed any changes in medicine and healthcare during the 1950s compared to what you practiced in the Navy?
Oh, sure. It's like a world apart. It's hard to reconcile that, but medical practice right now is much more complex than it was, especially for the instruments that you have available for diagnosing and treating. So it's very important. One thing we did when we started our residency training programs after getting out of medical school, we studied, and we had to take the American Board of Internal Medicine, which was really a hard test. And so we used to study that Friday nights and probably at a bar over on National Avenue. And so anyway, we got through that, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on. And fortunately, we were able to avail ourselves of that. And so I think we were all pretty well trained, and we knew what we were doing. But medicine, like anything else, it's something you have to keep studying. And if you look at that table over there, I got all kinds of bulletins from doctors that are and specialists that are in various places like Harvard and UCLA and other medical centers and Marquette doctors too. And so we try to stay abreast. I retired in 1997, I think, and but I still read up on that stuff all the time. I don't practice medicine anymore. I don't even know if I have a license or not. And I don't know because I can't find it.
Looking back at your previous medical experiences, are there any things you were doing at the time that now you're thinking we shouldn't have been doing that, like it wasn't safe or it wasn't sanitary?
Well, I think there's a lot of treatments that have changed. But we had in World War II, we had no antibiotics. The only antibiotic we had was penicillin, and penicillin only would hit certain bacteria, and a lot of the others, it wouldn't touch them. So now we have a roundhouse full of antibiotics, and our laboratory testing is much more sophisticated, and we do various types of X-rays. And do you know about CT scanners?
Yes.
And so we do that, and all that stuff is new. We had none of that in World War II. All we had was just plain X-rays, and about all you could see on it is bones.
Moving on to the 1960s, like big events in that era. What do you remember about the civil rights movements? Like, where were you? What news coverage did you see? What were the reactions of people around you?
Well, I didn't personally have any reactions. I was in a barracks with a lot of blacks, and I found them all to be a lot of fun, and we were all good friends. And then when I was a resident at the VA hospital, we had a black resident there, and I became very friendly with him, and we started a bowling league. Because we did that afterwards, and his name was Hubert Bobo, and I told him he slept in a room with him, and I said, I got to leave this room. And I said, it's nothing against you, it's just your snoring is killing me. So anyway, Hubert and I don't know whatever happened to him. I've never seen him since he left and went out to California. And he sent me a Christmas card one time, but he was a great guy, and we were good friends. But that happened to us a lot. Guys that we knew and were good friends with, they were taken somewhere, and we never see them again anywhere.
Would you say that the sentiments you carried around black people and like your willingness to be friends with them was the broader opinion that most of the people around you held?
Well, I think so. The job that I had in high school was delivering Coca-Cola. And we delivered them around the city of Milwaukee to various taverns and restaurants and things. And A lot of the taverns in the middle of the city were operated by black guys, and it seems like we had a very good relationship with them. They were all nice guys, and they said, "You guys want a drink or anything?" I said, "Well, we wouldn't be doing that." But there was no problem with me. I liked them. We were friends.
Were you yourself witness to any blatant or like large acts of racism around you?
Oh, sure, there's acts of racism going on all the time, but I don't know of them personally, and I wouldn't have anything to do with them. I can't stand that.
Mm-hmm.
For example, what was your reaction to news in Arkansas around the Little Rock Nine?
Well, you'll have to excuse me, I don't remember what the Little Rock Nine were.
Well, a major point of emphasis in our 50s and 60s class was around efforts for desegregation, and one of those events took place in Little Rock, Arkansas, and they had these 9 black kids enter the I think it was Little Rock High School, and there was a lot of efforts to block the desegregation.
Was that one where somebody, the president or somebody, had to fix it so they could get in, or?
Yes, yes.
That was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, well, I remember that incident.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I can tell you, but I hope they eventually got in.
Yes. Mm-hmm. They did.
That's good.
To get in.
How did you experience like the climate around you while civil rights movement was going on? Like, did you see people around you change their attitudes or opinions towards race and equality and integration during this time?
I don't know I saw in the paper today where Dr. Finlayson died. He was a good friend of mine. He was an obstetrician, and we were friends, and I worked with him on a number of cases at St. Joe's Hospital and St. Michael's. But I've sort of lost track of your question, but I don't know. We all got along pretty good.
How did the assassination of President Kennedy affect you and people around you?
Oh, I remember I was in the office working, and a guy from the pharmacy came in and said, "The president's been shot." And then we didn't know if he lived or died, but we all went down and listened to the radio, and so we were affected by that quite a bit. I think Jack Kennedy was a good guy.
As the Vietnam War was part of this time, while that war escalated, what were your thoughts as a veteran, towards the war and war efforts around?
I was hoping they wouldn't draft us again. No, I don't like any wars. It just seems to be counterproductive, and I like them to be over with.
Through your time, you have experienced a lot of wars, living through World War II, the Korean War, and the Cold War. A lot of war happened within your lived experience. And could you give any opinion to the continued human nature to get into conflict?
Get into what?
Get into conflict with one another.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. I can't hear very good, you know.
So you have lived through a lot of wars.
Yeah.
Could you give any opinion to your continued live experience with a lot of nations being willing to get into war? What is your overall opinion on the topic of how quick we are to jump to conflict?
Yeah, well, I think that, yeah, I understand what you mean. I don't know. It's one country injures another in some way, and sometimes it gets into war, and sometimes they brighten up and negotiate and get something done. So I'm kind of in the chair for negotiating. I don't think that we have to have a war every minute.
Yeah.
As you seem pretty anti-war, as I think you would say, did you protest at all for the war in Vietnam? Did you have anything to do with saying we should not be doing this?
No, because I never understood what the war was about.
Mm.
That's the long and the short of it. It's two sides disagreed on something. They started fighting, and to this day, I don't know what that war was about.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, let me know.
So basically, it was over how North and South of Vietnam had conflicting ideas of governance, and America was basically trying to stop the spread of communism to broader Asia. And so they got into conflict trying to defend North Vietnam from South Vietnam because they wanted to protect
Did the United States want to...
from South Vietnam to North Vietnam because they wanted to protect them from...
What is this?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically it was just because America's anti-communism, they got into a war to protect...
I guess philosophically, we're, anti-communist. I don't believe that communism is a viable type of society. And I think the model of the United States is okay. And people get to vote, and we have liberties that are not in existence in other countries. But sometimes you don't know what the inner conflict or the inner political conflict is in those things. But I would probably vote against communism as a general idea.
Me too.
You said that you were nervous, or that you really just didn't want them to draft you again into the Vietnam War. Did you know any younger men who were drafted or enlisted to fight in the Vietnam War?
I knew some that were in the war, but they were mostly younger than me. There was another episode that Russia and the United States were threatening each other right after the end of World War II, and fortunately that settled down. And I didn't feel like going back to war again. But fortunately nothing happened there for a while. I don't know. It seems like in the political world there's still a lot of unrest, and hopefully we can knock off the wars and live in some semblance of peace.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel that the 1960s differed from the 1950s? Like, what changes did you see between those two decades?
Well, I don't think there was really a lot of change politically in terms of... So when was that Vietnam War? Was that in the 1960s?
Yes.
That's a long time ago. I didn't know what was going on in there. I can't remember a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to ask it?
No, sorry.
No, okay. So, how did your Navy service influence the way you understood the world during those years between the 50s and 60s?
That for an enlisted man in the Army or Navy, you're not allowed to think at those lofty levels. How does it influence you, or how does it change or modify your philosophy? And so nobody ever thought about that. They just thought about getting out and not getting shot and all that stuff. So being in the service of the country was okay. That was good, and we endured it, but we didn't. We wish we were out of it, but we couldn't be. So we made the best of it, and fortunately, it came out all right for a while. But those are some lofty questions. We might have to have a big convention to figure out.
Okay, one of my questions that I'm really looking forward to asking you is, are there any particular memories, smells, sounds, routines that bring you back to your time as a medic?
As a medic in the service?
Yes.
No, there was just sick and injured people, and they had a lot of infections and a lot of wounds and a lot of bone and orthopedic damage and things like that. And there was a lot of guys who, had nervous breakdowns, and there was a lot of that. So we had to treat all that stuff. We assisted the doctors, and then when I was a physician, then we had to work on all that stuff too. So it's a kind of a continuum. There's always something going wrong, and so it was nice to be able to work with those people, and some of them got better, and not all of them do.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you feel is important to share?
No, I guess you covered the field there, of the political field and the medical field. And do you have any questions about medical stuff?
Me specifically, I want to know, what was it like preparing for board exams?
It was tough. For the first thing you had to do is, these are for national boards. You have to go somewhere. And I went to Chicago and someplace on the East Coast. And when we went there, I had finished a residency already, and these are like board exams, and they have 3 big shots from medical colleges, and you go there and they give you 2 patients, and then you go into the room and you do what we call a standard history and physical. So you take a long history, all the past history, and then the current stuff, and then you examine them, and then you have to go out there and meet the guy that's examining you, and so we do that. And so I did that in 2 different cities, and fortunately I was able to pass. A lot of guys didn't, and it was hard. Sometimes if you miss one little thing, one guy I know failed his exam because he neglected to look in the guy's ear, and he had a perforated eardrum. And I thought to myself, wow, this is not right. So anyway, we did that, and we studied for weeks on end, even long after we finished our residencies and that, in order to, no stone was turned unturned. So here we are, and here's the end of the line right here.
Thank you for sharing your memories. Your experience helped us understand a part of history that only people who live through it can truly describe. I want to thank you for your time very much.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure doing business with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.